I just caught my boss cheating on his wife, and before I could send the evidence to her, I was offered the promotion I'd been dreaming about for years. The timing couldn't have been more suspicious or convenient, standing in Jonathan Reed's office now with a fancy Seeing Your Pre-My plaque on his desk that hadn't been there yesterday. I tried to keep my expression neutral as he slid the offer letter across his mahogany desk. "You've earned this, Linda," he said, his voice measured and professional. Nothing like the heated whispers I'd overheard last night in the empty conference room. "Your marketing campaigns have consistently outperformed expectations." The board agreed unanimously. I glanced down at the paper. A 40% salary increase led you over the entire marketing department. The title I'd been grinding toward for the last 4 years. Thank you. I managed my throat suddenly dry. "This is unexpected." Jonathan leaned back in his chair, studying me for a terrifying moment. I wondered if he knew, if he'd somehow spotted me last night when I was working late and happened to walk past conference room, etc. The door had been left slightly ajar, and there they were, Jonathan with his hands all over Emily Chen, the new executive brought in from our competitor. "You seem hesitant," he said, eyes narrowing slightly, having second thoughts. My phone felt heavy in my pocket, the photos still there, dark, slightly blurry, but unmistakable. His wedding ring clearly visible against Emily's blouse. "Not at all," I assured him, forcing a smile. "It's just a lot to process. I'm grateful for the opportunity." He nodded, seemingly satisfied. "Good. You start Monday, T. Here's a leadership retreat this weekend at Lake Tahoe. Short notice, I know, but it would be good for you to attend. Get to know the team you'll be working with, including Emily Chen." The question slipped out before I could stop myself. His expression flickered for just a millisecond. "Yes, of course, the entire executive team will be there. Is that a problem?" I shook my head quickly. "No problem at all." As I walked back to my cubicle, the offer letter felt like it was burning through my folder. My best friend Zoe pounced as soon as I returned. "Well," she whispered, practically bouncing with excitement. "Did you get it?" I nodded, unable to fully match her enthusiasm. "What's wrong? This is what you've been killing yourself for. 4 years of nights and weekends, Linda." I know, I sighed, lowering my voice. "But something happened last night." I pulled out my phone, glanced around to make sure no one was watching, and showed her the photos. Zoe's eyes widened. "Holy shit, Jonathan and Emily, but his wife Kate, yes, the one whose father owns Meridian Beijing, our biggest client." I ran a hand through my hair, and suddenly, today of all days, I get the promotion. Zoe sat back. "You think he knows you saw them?" "I don't know, maybe. The timing is suspicious as hell." Zoe finished for me. I nodded, staring at the offer letter again. "What would you do?" She thought for a moment. "And to beat, I'd take the promotion. You earned it regardless of whatever this is. But I'd be careful, very, very careful." My phone buzzed with a text notification. "N number. Congratulations on your promotion, Linda. Looking forward to working closely with you." Pert Emily Chen. I showed it to Zoe, whose eyebrows shot up. "How did she get my personal number?" I whispered. "I don't know," Zoe replied, looking uneasy. "But I am changing my advice. Don't just be careful, be terrified." I stared at the message, then at the photos on my phone. The promotion offer in my hand represented everything I'd worked for, the validation, the financial security, the chance to finally lead. But as I looked at Jonathan through the glass walls of his office, now on a call and laughing as if nothing in his life was complicated, I couldn't shake the feeling that this promotion wasn't just a reward. It was a test, or worse, a trap. And as I typed a polite response to Emily, I wondered what would Kate Reed think if she knew what her husband was doing, and what would she think about the woman who knew but said nothing. I had until Monday to decide who I was going to be, the ambitious executive who looked the other way, or something else entirely. My first week as Epin director started with a company-wide email announcing my promotion, followed by a flood of congratulations from colleagues. Some seemed genuinely happy for me, others, particularly those who'd been at Tet Dynamics longer, had smiles that didn't quite reach their eyes. The Lake Tahoe retreat had been a blur of strategic planning sessions, team-building exercises, and awkward dinners where I tried not to stare at Jonathan and Emily. They were perfectly professional the entire weekend, not a single inappropriate glance exchanged. I almost convinced myself I'd imagined the whole thing. Almost. "Linda, do you have a minute?" Jonathan appeared at my new office door. Yes, I had an actual office now with walls and a door that closed. The nameplate was still being made. "Of course," I said, closing my laptop. "What can I help with?" He closed the door behind him and my heart rate instantly spiked. "I need the Westridge presentation by tomorrow morning. I know it wasn't scheduled until next week, but the client moved up the timeline." I blinked. "Tomorrow? That's not possible. We're still waiting on data from research, and the creative team hasn't." "This is the executive level, Linda." He cut me off, his smile tight. "We make the impossible happen. That's why you got this position, isn't it? Because you can handle pressure?" I forced myself to hold his gaze. "I'll have it done. Excellent." He turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, and I've added you to the Meridian Beijing account. Kate's father is considering expanding our contract, and I thought you could bring a fresh perspective." My mouth went dry. "Kate, as in your wife?" "The very same," he replied smoothly. "You'll meet her at the client dinner next week. She's excited to meet the woman I've been praising so highly." After he left, I called Zoe and asked her to meet me for lunch. We sat at a corner table in a clespe 2 blocks from the office, far enough that we wouldn't run into colleagues. "He's testing you," Zoe said after I explained the situation. "The impossible deadline putting you on his father-in-law's account. He's seeing if you'll cave under pressure, or he's setting me up to fail," I muttered. "If I can't deliver the Westridge presentation, then he has reason to question your promotion just 1 week in." Zoe finished. "Clever." I pushed my salad around the plate. "And now I have to meet his wife, look her in the eye while knowing." "Stop." Zoe reached across the table and grabbed my wrist. "This isn't your affair. This isn't your lie. You are not responsible for his choices, but I am complicit if I say nothing." "Are you?" she challenged. "Did you sign up to be the morality police when you took this job? What about your career, Linda? You worked your ass off for this position." She was right, of course. I hadn't worked 80-hour weeks for 4 years just to throw it all away on some moral crusade. But something still felt wrong that night. I stayed at the office until 2 a.m., piecing together the Westridge presentation with whatever data I could get my hands on. My eyes burned from staring at the screen, and my shoulders ached with tension. The cleaning crew came and went, giving me sympathetic glances. Around midnight, I heard footsteps and looked up to find Emily Chen standing in my doorway, 2 cups of coffee in hand. "Thought you could use this," she said, placing one on my desk. "Jonathan mentioned the Westridge deadline." I stared at the coffee, suspicious. "Sachs," she smiled, taking a seat across from me uninvited. "The first week is always the hardest. He did the same to me when I started, assigned impossible tasks. It's how he tests new leadership, sees what we're made of." She shrugged. "It's effective, if a bit sadistic." I turned back to my laptop, uncomfortable with the casual conversation. "I should really get back to this." "Let me help," she offered. "I worked on something similar at my last company." I hesitated, studying her. Emily Chen was everything I wasn't polished, confident with the kind of effortless poise that came from privilege or exceptional self-assurance. What was her angle here? "Why would you help me?" I asked bluntly, her smile dimmed slightly. "Because contrary to what you might think of me, I do believe in women supporting women in this industry." The irony wasn't lost on me. A woman sleeping with a married man invoking female solidarity. But I was desperate, and she had expertise I needed. "All right," I conceded. "I could use help with the market projection slides." We worked together for the next hour, and I had to admit she was brilliant. The presentation transformed from adequate to compelling under her guidance. "Can I ask you something?" I said as we wrapped up, my exhaustion loosening my tongue. "Don't you worry about." "About what?" Her eyes met mine challenging. "I retreated about Jonathan testing you the same way he's testing me." She laughed, a sound both melodic and slightly cold. "Oh, Linda, you are still thinking like a middle manager. At our level, we're not just being tested." She gathered her things and headed for the door. "We're the ones setting the tests." The next morning, bleary-eyed but determined, I delivered the presentation. Jonathan reviewed it in silence, his expression unreadable. "This is surprisingly thorough," he finally said. "Emily helped you, didn't she?" My stomach dropped. "We collaborated on some sections." He nodded slowly. "Harikan. I didn't expect that." He closed the file and looked up at me. "The client dinner with Meridian Beijing is Tuesday. Wear something appropriate. Kate can be judgmental." As I left his office, my phone buzzed with a text from Emily. "Nailed it, drinks to celebrate Friday." I stared at the message, feeling caught in a web I didn't fully understand. My promotion was turning out to be far more complicated than a simple career advancement. Every interaction felt loaded with subtext, every assignment the potential landmine, and I couldn't shake the feeling that both Jonathan and Emily were playing a game whose rules I didn't know. The client dinner with Meridian Beijing was held at La Kiel, the kind of restaurant where where the menu didn't list prices and the wine list was thicker than most novels. I arrived 15 minutes early, smoothing down my black cocktail dress, the most expensive item in my wardrobe, purchased specifically for this occasion. Miss Warren, the Maperio D approached. The Reed party has already arrived. Please follow me. I was led to a private dining room in the back, where Jonathan sat at the head of a large table, his arm casually draped over the chair next to him. On his left was a distinguished older man with silver hair and sharp eyes that assessed me the moment I walked in. Across from him sat a blonde woman who could only be Kate Reed. She was stunning, the kind of effortless beauty that came from good genes and expensive maintenance, but what struck me most was how young she looked. Much younger than Jonathan, possibly even younger than me. Linda Jonathan stood all charm and warmth. Come meet everyone. This is Maxwell Pearson, CEO of Meridian Maging. Maxwell gave me a firm handshake. So you're the marketing genius Jonathan's been raving about. Miss Jonathan continued, is my wife Kate. Kate's smile was practiced and perfect. Verbally. To meet you, Linda. Jonathan says you are a miracle worker. Hardly, I said, trying to match her poise. Just dedication. Maxwell raised his glass. Is what separates the extraordinary from the merely competent. Would you agree, Jonathan? Absolutely, Jonathan smiled, but something in his expression seemed tight. Linda exemplifies that principle. As we took our seats, I noticed that Emily was conspicuously absent. Will Miss Chen be joining us? I asked, attempting casual conversation. A flicker of something annoyance crossed Jonathan's face. Unfortunately, she had a prior commitment. Kate tilted her head. Emily, I don't think we've met. Our new strategy director, Jonathan explained smoothly, poached her from Breakhex Tech. Oh, Kate's eyes widened slightly. Emily Chen Max, isn't she? Vivian's cousin. Maxwell nodded, sipping his wine. Indeed, small world in this industry. I felt like I'd missed something important. Vivian, my daughter, Kate explained. We grew up with the Chen family. Emily and Vivian were inseparable as children, practically sisters, though they had quite the falling out in college, as I recall. I nearly choked on my water. Emily was Kate's cousin or cousin-in-law or whatever the connection was, and Jonathan was sleeping with her. The waiter arrived to take our orders, giving me a moment to collect myself. The conversation shifted to business, with Maxwell detailing his expansion plans and how Tech Dynamics might support them. I answered questions and offered insights on autopilot, my mind racing with this new information. After dinner, Kate excused herself to the restroom, and I followed a moment later, needing space from the table's tension. In the elegant bathroom, Kate was reapplying her lipstick. She caught my eye in the mirror and smiled. So Linda, off the record, how do you like working with my husband? He can be intense. I chose my words carefully. He challenges his team to excel. It's effective if demanding. She laughed a surprisingly genuine sound. That's diplomatic. Jonathan has always been ruthless about getting what he wants. It's what makes him so successful. She capped her lipstick, and so dangerous to cross. The warning was subtle but unmistakable. I'm not looking to cross anyone, I assured her. I just want to do good work. Good. She turned to face me. Because this Meridian deal is important to my father, and what's important to him is important to me. She smoothed her already perfect hair. We take care of our own in this family. Back at the table, I noticed Maxwell studying me with new interest. Linda, he said, as dessert was served. Jonathan tells me you have quite the eye for spotting market opportunities. What do you think about the Archer acquisition? I blinked, surprised to be put on the spot about a potential acquisition that hadn't been announced yet. I don't believe I am familiar with that possibility, sir. Maxwell's eyebrows rose. No, I thought your executive team had discussed it. He glanced at Jonathan, who looked momentarily uncomfortable. It's still in the exploratory phase, Jonathan said quickly. Only a few people are in the loop. Ah, Maxwell nodded. Well, perhaps Linda should be included given her role in the Meridian relationship. The dinner concluded with handshakes and promises of follow-up meetings. As we waited for the valet, Kate pulled me aside. Linda, we should have lunch sometime just as girls. I'd like that, I replied, surprised by the invitation. Excellent, my assistant will call yours. She kissed me on both cheeks European style, then whispered, be careful at Tech Dynamics. Not everyone has your best interests at heart. Before I could respond, she glided away to join her husband. The next morning, I received an email from Emily Chen requesting a meeting to align on the Meridian relationship. When I arrived at the specified conference room, she was already there, reviewing documents. How was dinner? She asked without looking up. Enlightening, I replied, taking a seat. You didn't mention you are related to Kate Reed. Emily's mouth curved into a smile. Second cousins, our mothers are cousins. Is that relevant? It might be, considering your relationship with Jonathan. She finally met my days, her expression cooling. I was wondering when you bring that up. I expect you longer than I expected. I'm not judging, I said, though that wasn't entirely true. I'm just trying to understand what I've walked into here. Emily leaned forward. What you've walked into, Linda, is an opportunity. The Archer acquisition Maxwell mentioned. It's a small AI startup that would complete our product suite. Jonathan wants it, Maxwell wants it. But here is a problem, which is Archer is owned by Vivian Pearson, Kate's sister and my cousin. She refuses to sell to Tech Dynamics because of personal history. I processed this information. So that's why you are here, to convince your cousin to sell. Emily's smile turned sharp. Very good. You are starting to see the bigger picture. And Jonathan? She shrugged. Jonathan has his motivations, as do I. As do you. What are my motivations exactly? I asked, irritated by her presumption. Emily gathered her documents and stood. That's the question, isn't it? Dimity it out quickly, Linda. Because in this game, those who don't know what they want end up being used by those who do. She left me sitting there feeling like I just been given another test one, with no clear right answer. That afternoon, I received a calendar invite from Kate Reed for lunch the following week. The subject line read, girls lunch, things to discuss about Archer. The web of connections was tightening around me, and I was beginning to feel like less of a player and more of a pawn. The week passed in the blur of meetings, strategy sessions, and late nights. I was settling into my new role, earning respect from my team, but the undercurrents of corporate politics were becoming increasingly difficult to navigate. On Thursday, Jonathan called me into his office. I need you to prepare a valuation report on Archer Timology for the potential acquisition. I asked, testing what he'd share. He studied me for a moment. Yes, Maxwell mentioned it at dinner. I understand he did, though I was surprised to hear about it for the first time in that setting. Jonathan leaned back in his chair. Not everything is shared with the entire executive team. Linda need to know basis. And now you need to know. He slid a folder across his desk. These are the preliminary financials. I want your assessment by Monday. I took the folder. Does Emily know I am working on this? A flicker of annoyance crossed his face. Emily has her role. You have yours. Don't get them confused. That evening, as I was digging through Archer's financials, Zoe appeared at my office door. Dinner, you've been here until 9 p.m. every night this week. I rubbed my eyes. I can't. This Archer valuation can wait until tomorrow, she insisted. You look like hell and I have gossip. 20 minutes later, we were at our favorite, that place, splitting drunken noodles and spring rolls. So Zoe leaned forward. Word around the office is that you are being groomed for something big. Jonathan's been telling the board you are exceptional. I nearly choked on my water. That doesn't sound like him. Maybe he's genuinely impressed. Or maybe he wants something from you. He wants a valuation on Archer Dimology, I replied, then proceeded to explain the complicated web I discovered. Zoe's eyes widened. Wait, so Emily is having an affair with Jonathan, who's married to Kate, whose sister owns the company Jonathan wants to acquire, and Emily is related to both of them. Cousin, I clarified, and yes, Jesus. Zoe sat back. And where do you fit in the soap opera? I shook my head. I have no idea. But Kate invited me to lunch next week, and the subject line mentioned Archer. Be careful, Linda. This sounds like several kinds of messy. The next day, Emily stopped by my office, closing the door behind her. Jonathan tells me you are working on the Archer valuation. I looked up from my computer. I am. She sat across from me, legs crossed elegantly. And what are your findings so far? That their AI technology is undervalued, but their revenue model is shaky. The company's worth about 30% more than the initial offering, but they need strategic guidance. Emily nodded. That matches my assessment. Why the interest? I thought this wasn't your area. She smiled. Everything is my area. Top clear things that concern the Pearson family. I decided to be direct. Why are you sleeping with Kate's husband? The question didn't faze her. Who says I am? I saw you in conference room at Sierra the night before my promotion. She studied me for a long moment. And you haven't told Kate? It's not my place to. Don't be naive. She cut me off. You made a choice by staying silent. We all make choices, Linda. The question is whether we understand the consequences of those choices. Is that a threat? Emily stood. It's a reality check. You are playing in the big leagues now, where personal and and professional lines blur. Just make sure you know which side you are on before things get complicated. And which side is that? I challenged. The winning side, I hope. She paused at the door. By the way, I'll be at your lunch with Kate. She didn't mention that, did she? Monday morning brought a crisis. The Westridge campaign, which had launched the previous week, was showing dismal early results. Jonathan called an emergency meeting, his face thunderous. These numbers are unacceptable, he declared, throwing the report onto the conference table. Linda, this was your first major project as evidence director. Realm, all eyes turned to me. I'd reviewed the numbers that morning and had been as shocked as everyone else. The strategy was sound, I said, keeping my voice steady. But something changed between approval and execution. Excuses, Jonathan snapped. Not excuses, facts. I pulled out my original proposal on my tablet and passed it around. The targeting parameters were altered after final approval. The campaign that launched wasn't what we designed. Murmurs spread around the table. Jonathan frowned. Who authorized these changes? I hesitated, then said, the system shows it was your Lala, Jonathan. The room went silent. Jonathan's face darkened. That's impossible. I can confirm Linda's original strategy was sound. Emily interrupted smoothly. I reviewed it myself. Something clearly went wrong in execution. The tension in the room was palpable. Jonathan looked from Emily to me, then back to the report. I will investigate the Rolia issue, he finally said. In the meantime, Linda, fix this, whatever it takes. After the meeting, Emily caught up with me in the hallway. That was interesting. Someone sabotaged my campaign, I said, anger bubbling up, and used Jonathan's credentials to do it. She raised an eyebrow. And who do you think that someone might be? I don't know, but I intend to find out. Emily smiled. Good luck with that. Oh, and don't forget lunch with Kate tomorrow, noon at Eloise's. That night I stayed late again, combing through system logs and email trails, trying to piece together what had happened. Frenzy, 10 p.m. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Check the backup server logs from Thursday night. You are looking in the wrong places. Part a friend. I stared at the message, then followed the lead. Poured enough in the backup logs, I found what I was looking for. Evidence that someone had used a terminal in Jonathan's office to access the campaign parameters. But at the time when Jonathan was in a board meeting, someone had framed him, which meant someone had access to his office and his lower credentials. But who? As I was pondering this, I heard footsteps outside my office. Looking up, I saw Kate Reed standing in my doorway, looking completely out of place in the nearly empty office in her designer dress. Working late? She asked, a knowing smile on her face. I quickly closed the server logs, Kate. This is unexpected. I was having dinner nearby and thought I'd stop by. Jonathan mentioned you were a workaholic. She glided into my office, looking around curiously. Finding anything interesting? I hesitated, unsure how much to reveal, just trying to fix a campaign issue. Kate nodded as if she already knew the Westridge debacle. Nasty business, having your work sabotaged. My pulse quickened. How did you know? She smiled. I make it my business to know things, Linda pert, when they involve my husband's company. She perched on the edge of my desk. I'm looking forward to our lunch tomorrow. I think we have a lot to discuss. Emily mentioned she'll be joining us, did she? Kate's smile never wavered. How considerate of her to let you know. She stood smoothing her dress. See you tomorrow, Linda. Don't stay too late. You look exhausted. After she left, I sat in my silent office, the pieces of the puzzle scattered before me, but the picture still unclear. And some men seemed to be playing an angle, Jonathan, Emily, Kate, and somewhere in the middle was Archer Dymology and its reluctant owner, Vivian Pearson. I pulled up the company website and found myself looking at a photo of Vivian, a younger version of Kate, with the same blonde hair but sharper features and a less practiced smile. According to her bio, she'd founded Archer after leaving a position at Tet Dynamics 3 years ago. I sat back processing this new information. She'd worked here under Jonathan's leadership, and now she refused to sell her company to him. The pieces were starting to form a pattern, but it was still incomplete. Whatever was happening at Tet Dynamics went deeper than office politics or marital infidelity. It was personal, and somehow I'd been pulled right into the center of it. Eloise's was a discreet restaurant favored by the city's elite hidden entrance. Private booths, no photographs allowed. I arrived exactly at noon, dressed in my second best outfit, and was shown to a corner table where Kate already sat alone, sipping white wine. Linda, she greeted me warmly. Right on time, Emily, just texty. She's running late. Of course she is, I muttered before I could stop myself. Kate laughed, not a fan. Most people are charmed by Emily. I chose my words carefully. She's certainly effective at what she does, which is precisely why I hired her, Kate said, taking another sip of wine. I blinked. You hired her? I thought Jonathan thinks he makes the decisions at Tet Dynamics, Kate interrupted smoothly. My father and I let him believe that? It's better for everyone. My mind reached to process this revelation. So Emily reports to you, not to Tet Dynamics. Kate's smile was enigmatic. Emily and I have an understanding. She provides certain services to the company. The double meaning wasn't lost on me. Before I could respond, Kate continued. I know about the affair, Linda. I've known from the beginning. My heart skipped. Kate. Please. She waved her hand dismissively. Spare me the awkward denial or apology. It's not your affair to apologize for. If you know, then why? Why am I still married to him? She shrugged. The same reason my father keeps Jonathan as CEO despite his shortcomings. He's useful for now. I felt like I'd stumbled into a parallel universe where nothing operated according to normal rules. I don't understand. Let me clarify then. Kate leaned forward. 3 years ago, my sister Vivian was working at Tet Dynamics, developing the AI technology that would eventually become Archer. Jonathan tried to claim her work as the company's intellectual property. When she resisted, let's just say he made her life very difficult. He harassed her, I guessed, among other things. Kate's voice hardened. She left and started Archer with my father's investment. Jonathan has been trying to get his hands on that technology ever since. Now he thinks he's found a way through you, me. What could I possibly your Archer valuation? Jonathan wants to use it to convince the board that acquiring Archer is essential for Tet Dynamics' future. Once they approve the pursuit, he'll leverage every connection and trick to force Vivian to sell. I sat back stunned. Emily was supposed to be our eyes and ears inside Jonathan's inner circle, but she got distracted by sleeping with your husband, I said bluntly. Kate's laugh was cold. Emily always had questionable judgment when it comes to men. It's her one weakness. The waiter approached, and Kate ordered for both of us without consulting me. After he left, I asked the question burning in my mind. Why are you telling me all this? Because you are different, Linda. She studied me. You are ambitious but not ruthless, talented but not entitled, and most importantly, you have a conscience. You don't know me, I protested. I know you saw my husband with my cousin and didn't immediately use it as leverage. I know you investigated the Westridge sabotage instead of accepting to blame, and I know you are confused about where your loyalties should lie. She reached into her purse and pulled out a thumb drive, sliding it across the table. What's this evidence? Of everything Jonathan's done, not just to Vivian, but to multiple women at Tet Dynamics. For all harassment, idea theft, bullying, he's very careful about covering his tracks, but my father and I have been building a case for years. I stared at the thumb drive, not touching it. Why not just fire him? Corporate politics? She sighed. Jonathan has allies on the board. We need something irrefutable, something public, like testimony from a respected executive about how he tried to manipulate her into providing a fraudulent valuation to acquire a competitor. The implication was clear. You want me to be that executive? I want you to do what's right, Linda, for yourself and for all the women who suffered under Jonathan's leadership. Before I could respond, Emily arrived, slipping gracefully into the seat beside Kate. Sorry I am late, she said, not sounding sorry at all. Rapid Kate's demeanor changed instantly, becoming lighter, more casual. We were just catching up. Emily's eyes flicked to the thumb drive, which I quickly slipped into my bag. Anything interesting? Just girl talk, Kate replied, then to me. Linda was telling me about the Westridge campaign issues. Emily's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. Yes, quite the mystery. Not anymore, I said, meeting her gaze directly. Shaman used Jonathan's credentials while he was in a board meeting. The logs show access from his terminal. How strange, Emily murmured. I wonder who would have access to his office during meetings. Indeed, I replied. Only someone very close to him, I imagine. The tension at the table was palpable until Kate smoothly redirected the conversation to safer topics. At lunch, I observed the dynamic between the cousins, outwardly friendly but with undercurrents of competition and resentment. After lunch, Emily excused herself, first claiming a meeting. As soon as she was gone, Kate's expression turned serious again. Be careful of Emily, she warned. She's playing both sides. And what side are you playing? I countered. Kate smiled. The winning side, of course. The question is, which side will you choose? Back at the office, I shut my door and inserted the thumb drive into my computer. It contained dozens of files, emails, voice recordings, sworn statements from former employees. The evidence against Jonathan was damning. Then my phone buzzed with a text from Jonathan. My office, now heart pounding, I locked my computer and headed to his corner office. In Tiffy, I found not only Jonathan but also Emily, both looking grim. Close the door, Jonathan ordered. I complied, trying to keep my expression neutral. What's going on? Jonathan pushed a tablet across his desk. On it was security footage from the restaurant showing Kate sliding the thumb drive to me. Care to explain? He asked, his voice dangerously quiet. I glanced at Emily, whose face revealed nothing. You are having me followed now. Not you, Emily, spoke up Kate. We've been monitoring her movements for weeks. I looked between them confused. Jonathan leaned forward. Emily has been helping me gather evidence against Maxwell and Tate Pearson. They've been manipulating company resources using tech dynamics to boost Meridian Maging position while simultaneously blocking our expansion efforts. I turned to Emily Perspicer.